All right, welcome everybody. We are live. I hope you're having a good day. I thought it'd be a good stream to do some live coding and show how I use ChatGPT to extract logic and to basically get it to write my code for me. And it's a very useful tool. I've been programming since I was a kid. I think it's still a useful skill set that takes the ability to extract code from ChatGPT to the next level if you can learn code. But it's something you'll just naturally pick up if you play around and just have it write code for you enough. So let me just make sure I start all the streams here. All right, we're good to go. So let me show my screen. This is an example that I was doing just before kicking off the show here. I realized I have this folder full of images for another example I wanted to work on today. Shout out to the person who sent me an email with an awesome new library that I hadn't seen. Let me just show that real quick. This is on GitHub. It's called Marker. Vic Peruchiri. Shout out to him. Looks very cool in that it helps you extract text from a PDF, which is something I've been working on. But the thing that really jumped out at me that I think is awesome is that it helps identify. I was just looking at an example. I'm not sure where it is, but it helps identify the regions of the page. So a lot of times you'll see a book with multiple columns, or you'll have tables, or you'll have like a big header at the top and then multiple columns. And it can make extracting the text very difficult. And something that's really cool these days is that we have access to millions and millions and millions of books through sites like Anna's Archive. That's annas-archive.org. The Internet Archive, although that's contained in Anna's Archive. There's Commons, which is like a wiki site, Wikimedia Commons. There are so many PDFs that we can grab, and we should be grabbing them because we're transitioning unless these people trying to halt AI in the hands of the common peasant get their way. We're moving to an era where data is somewhat akin to a precious commodity. I think it's always been a precious commodity. I was going to say data is gold, but I think that's a little bit ridiculous. But data is very valuable, and there have been, for millennia, people poring over all the works at their fingertips, trying to research and document and journal this information, and that information still exists in many forms. Well, some of it. And so I'm very interested in trying to utilize all this information because I can't read it all. And so I thought a good example today would be Aesop's Fables. Not the most scientific or anything like that work, but I think it's super interesting. And it's something I've been trying to kind of wrap my head around, grapple with. And so something I realized is I extracted all these images with something called Ghost Script, which is pretty cool. Takes a PDF and then takes all the images out. But I realized it was in the wrong format. It's JPEG format, and for whatever reason, I want it to be PNG format. So what I wanted to do is I have this page. Let me just show you this cool feature I built into my browser. So when I go to a new tab, it was killing me because I use Firefox, not for any particular reason. I mean, I guess it works well for me. But they have this annoying start page, and they started getting more and more advertisements on there. And it really started annoying me. Because I like how they, put the most recently accessed tabs, but they started like front loading with advertisements. So I'm just like, I'm going to build my own replacement for this, where I can just type in and it'll Google search something, or I can click on these pages I go to a lot. And also it has autocomplete to a number of my own pages, because I kind of like that when you're in the search bar and you start typing something, it's a typo, but it'll like help you go to that page real quick just from typing a few letters. So I wanted that as well. So when I open a new tab, it starts right here and I can just go like this. I've even started putting, well, I have one keystroke. I can do Control K and that'll open up ChatGPT because I come here all the time. I'm not trying to be a bad influence, but I'm just saying at this point in time, there's a window where these AI tools can be extremely beneficial if you know how to use them. So what I wanted to do is I have this page here called Calcs, and I can just put a number of calculators here. Like I like these online tools. I'm sure you've seen them. For every little task or for many tasks that we do, there are oftentimes these online calculators. Like, for example, if you have a list and you want to alphabetize it, sort of alphabetically, there's an online tool for that usually. So these are tools that I have on my own computer, kind of personalized for me. And whenever I need a new tool, I just put it on here. And ChatGPT is excellent at just building these new calculators super quick. So another thing I want to mention before we dive in, if you're a Windows user, I really recommend turning on, it's called IIS, Internet Information Systems. And it basically lets you have your own web server. Let me show this. So this is the www root. So this is just part of IIS. And everything I put in this www root is available on localhost / whatever folder or whatever file, etc. So I just had to put a start page here. It has one HTML file, and it loads right up here. I think it's worth going the extra step in configuring it to support PHP. And you can use ChatGPT or the like to explain that to you, or find something with Google the old-fashioned way. So what I want to do here is just add well, that's fine. Switch screens. I want to add a new button here, basically just convert JPEG to PNG. So let's go to my calcs. It's another folder in this www-root IIS directory, which automatically turns into a hosted server on my own computer. And what's also cool, although this can sometimes be an issue, so you got to be aware of this, is that you can access these services, for lack of a better term. Like I can go to this calcs folder on my other computer because all my computers are on the same, what's called a local network. So they all have a global internet IP that's like an IP address, I should say, that and they all actually share that same global IP address. But if you go to a different local network, like if I went to my neighbor's house or if I went to my parents' house or whatever, and I went to that global IP, it would be firewalled, which is good because you don't want people accessing your stuff. But if somebody's on your same network, they can access this via just typing your local IP address. Like, for example, I have this page that I use a lot that I'm working on, looking forward to getting this out to people, called Data Browser. And so this is my other computer here, 192.168.1.206. And you can see it's password protected, which is something you want to do if there's any chance that somebody might stumble upon it. If it's obviously put up on a globally accessible server somewhere, or if you configure your router to make your computer globally accessible, which there are definitely reasons to do that from time to time. For example, you can get a cheap Linux machine and configure your modem and your router to have what's called a pinhole through the firewall. And so whenever anybody goes to your global IP address, you can just handle that with that one server, which I think is pretty cool. And that you can host all your files, access them anywhere in the world, save on storage fees versus other solutions, host websites there, database-driven stuff, et cetera, et cetera. So I also think there's a lot of value to being able to develop on our own computers, and just whenever you save a file in this folder here, the www root folder, and you just go to that web page again, it just automatically refreshes. Versus when you're programming on a server somewhere, there's the extra step of having to upload the files once you save them to that server, then you go and refresh. So you're kind of killing two birds with one stone. For example, when we build this calculator here, if I ever wanted to, I could turn this into a web page to service everybody in the world who wants to use it. Okay, so let's just make a new button on this calculator page. You can see I basically have an index, which is the file that gets loaded whenever anybody doesn't type in a specific file in the folder. So the index, I'm just going to do Control D, which is one of my favorite Notepad++ shortcuts. It makes a duplicate of the current line, or if you have a selection, the selection. And I'm just going to do JPEGs to PNG convert. And we'll do a similar file name here, JPEGs to PNG convert. Then I'm just going to do Control N. That's going to open up a new tab. I'm just going to paste that and save it. The way Notepad++ works, I love this software, is when you open up do Control N, it's going to be the same folder when you save. So that's oftentimes where you want to save to. So we'll just save this. And now I already prompted ChatGPT for this. We'll see how it did. I said, give me a calculator HTML page that takes a list of absolute JPEG paths. And when I click a button, it gives me all the ImageMagick convert commands. So this is the software I like to use for image conversion stuff. There's also FFmpeg, I think it's called. I don't know why I'm blanking on that. FFmpeg's great for video stuff. There's a number of these great softwares that you can just utilize and have a bunch of built-in functionality that you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. So I'll show you why I said takes a list of absolute JPEG paths. If you're on Windows, it's super easy to get a list of all your selected items, absolute paths. I'll show you that. But we'll come back over here. I'm just going to paste this in. It's HTML. HTML, if you don't know, is a great language for web. You kind of have to use HTML for web, at least for the client-side stuff. And then baked into HTML is what's called CSS. That's right here. This allows us to do blanket rules for all the elements on the page. And then there's JavaScript and all the many JavaScript libraries that people have built on top of this crucial scripting language for the web. And JavaScript's now extended, because people like it so much, to even being server-side with stuff like Node.js. All right, so super easy. Just pasted that in. Now we come over here. We can refresh the calculators. You see there's a new item. We click that. I'm going to say, can you make this dark mode? Not a huge deal, obviously, but so while it thinks about that, I can come back to my Aesop's Fable folder here, and I can, let's just start with one example here. We'll copy as path. So right click, copy as path. And if you're on older Windows, you can do Shift right click, copy as path. And this works for multiple selected items. Huge lifesaver when I found, I'm like, how did I not know about this? And if you're on Mac or Linux, there's similar things to IIS. One that I know of that I think is awesome is called Nginx. The letter N, G-I-N-X. And that's a server for, it's a really high performance server that works like IIS. So we'll do the generate convert commands, copy this. And I'm going to go to my PowerShell. You can also do command line. Right click to paste, hit enter. Invalid parameter. Okay, that's not good. So I'm not even sure if convert is currently pointing to ImageMagick. So let's ask ChatGPT. It's always good to you can just converse with ChatGPT. How can I tell if ImageMagick is installed? I tried the following command without success. See error. So I'll just copy this whole thing here because it gives it context. And what's great about these language models is they can roll with complex requests. You can just paste a bunch of code in there, and that's actually sometimes better than English because it's so specific and precise. Okay, we do have it installed. That's good. Okay, so it's saying try magic convert. So let's just go something really cool. If you're in a terminal, most terminals work this way. Instead of like trying to type the command again, just click the up arrow. And the up arrow is going to bring the last command and then hit it again, second to last command. And then I can hit the home key, go to the top of the beginning of the text. And I'm just going to type this magic, see if this works. It did work. Okay, so now we have enough to go back to ChatGPT, which just made a new version in dark mode. So something that's worth noting, and we've done a deep dive into coding with GPT-4, which looking back is so primitive and not very good, in my opinion, because of its failings. Like in some respects, it might be more logical or better reasoning than GPT-4o. But the issue is it'll just give you little snippets and you have to hunt down where to put them. And for a non-programmer, that can be pretty tough. It's tough for me, and I'm pretty fluent in many of these languages that I use. So the other thing is, I forgot what I was going to say, but let's just put this here. Actually, we can probably just do it the old-fashioned way and not have to get ChatGPT to do that. Oh, that's what I was going to say. So when you prompt GPT-4o, it'll, for the most part, in my experience, give you the entire code back. And then, like I'm doing here, I can just copy the code and then paste it all into place. And so GPT-4, we were seeing, had the issue where they would omit huge blocks of code. And they would put, like, with a comment, like this is a comment here in JavaScript, 2 slashes, which is just a note to yourself. Or sometimes you might want to comment on some code that you don't want to run. But they would put things like, your existing code here. And if you didn't notice that, especially if it's code that like isn't relevant to the problem that you were like hitting your head against the wall trying to solve, 30 minutes later, you're like, where'd that functionality that I spent hours on go? So they obviously got a lot of pushback, especially because people are trying to use these tools like Devin, etc., to do their development for them. And these tools are going to have a huge they're just going to lose code left and right. And so what I think happened is I think ChatGPT, and obviously the company behind it, OpenAI, I think they probably trained the next round of models better to do the desired behavior of putting in all the code, which I appreciate. And I think it indicates the direction they're going for future models. Because 4o is a very small model, it's fast. But I think they're going to have some heavier hitting models maybe as soon as the day after tomorrow, 1.5 days. We'll watch that closely. So the only thing I want to change here is, let's see, so they have this loop basically that's building out this commands list. This means make an empty list, or aka an array. And then .push in JavaScript adds a new thing to that. So we're just going to put this extra word here that makes it work. And we can come back over here. Again, we're just kind of prepping for the next stage, which is what I really am excited about. Okay, we're dark mode now, which I always prefer. Check out my Substack for my article about how we perceive color, which kind of gives some insights into why I like dark mode better than light mode if we have to stare at screens all day. Which I don't recommend, but it's the world some of us choose. Okay, so we can try this command out just to see if it works. Takes a second or two. Now I come back over here, do a sanity check. All right, there it is, the PNG version. So what I can do is just copy all of these as path, come back to my calculator, generate convert commands. So I remember I did something very similar to this for WebP images. WebP is a very annoying image type because a lot of software doesn't support it. So I just made something like this to convert to JPEG, and it was a huge time saver. And so a lot of people will like try to find online tools to do these types of things, but I say just build your own calculator collection. All right, so I'm going to paste this huge list of commands. There's probably like 536 commands. I'm just going to paste it. It's going to run them one by one. So it's thinking on the first one, thinking on the second one. And we can see over here it's putting them in place. So when this is done, I'll just probably delete all of the... well, I'm not sure why it started on number 518. Okay, they're just out of order, but that's fine. Okay, so while that's working, what I wanted to try out is this new, pretty awesome looking repo on GitHub. So GitHub's just a place where people publish their code. This is called Marker, and there's a couple of features that I'm interested in looking at. I don't think it's going to... Yeah, like it says here, this works best on digital PDFs that won't require a lot of OCR. So I don't think it's going to do a lot of heavy lifting for us as far as the OCR goes. But I have this problem that I've been working on. Let me show you. I have this page here, part of a suite of tools I'm going to release, hopefully soon, called Transcribe. And this tool right here is called Book Importer. And so I have all these books here, and I have many more on my computer. And so these are the ones that I've already like just extracted all the images to PNG, which is what I'm doing with the Aesop's Fable right now. But I can just click on the books and load them up. I already have this one loaded up here, but you can just load up your whole library into this. And the way I'm currently working on this is to have a list of rules, a group of rules that each cover a span of pages. And the top priority rule for each page is the one that it goes with. And so the reason I did this is because, you know, a lot of times I'll see for a book that like all the pages are aligned, all the text is in the exact same spot, except for maybe there's a difference between the odd and the even pages, etc. And so I wanted to have this tool that I could easily go through and just drag and drop. And for example, like this is its own custom rule because there's just a little bit of text here on the last page of the preface. And then you see rule 17 is on a lot of these pages, but some of them are going to be out of whack, and I need to decide, do I just make a one-off rule? Like this looks like maybe a one-off rule. I can just drag this over, right? And I still need to implement some more features. Like I don't think this middle bar is actually respected at this point, as it should be. Also, I just made a new rule. I think it will save this. Let's see, page 95. If I refresh this, takes a second. I need to improve. Oh, that's not too bad. So if we go down to 95 again, hopefully it made a new rule. Yeah. Not sure why it's calling. Okay, that's just the numbering. It got rule number 1, and it's its own exception to all these other ones. But what's cool here is that what I really like about this library, and shout out to the person who emailed me this. This is always, I'm always wide open to people who send me links and tools, because I think I saw that this person was working on this at some point, but I hadn't seen that he'd actually published it. And so this uses something called PyTorch, which I covered in the last stream, this high-tech machine learning suite of tools. And it looks like it's going to really help me, long story short, with finding the parts of the text that I need to parse out. So on certain types of text, which I'm really keen on getting the content from, I can automatically get the columns, line them all up, and then pass them, say, to GPT-4o. Let me read these chats here. Kimmy says, "Dear Tim, thank you for all your work and reporting. Wish the best life is most difficult now. And I just want to hug all the good people out there." Thank you so much, Kimmy. I appreciate that. Right back at you. I know it's hard for all of us. It's made that way because the eugenicists don't like us. So we have to work that much harder, but true greatness comes from fitness, right? Not by favoritism. Rich Silva says, what are you making? I'm making a number of things at the moment. One of them is basically trying to extract, because I have so many PDFs and I can get so many more. And with these new tools like large language models, we can actually train the language models to remember things from these books. So we can actually have them read for us, which I think is really cool. And then learn and then answer questions. And so I'm kind of looking towards that into the future. And I'm like, we need to start gathering data. And one problem is a lot of the data is in PDF format with not the best OCR. And somebody sent me this tip called Marker on GitHub. I'm going to put this in my in the YouTube chat if anybody wants to check this out. And so I'm going to give it a spin live here. And then I also made this other tool that we just went over. If you want to watch the beginning of the stream, it's still plugging away at this, converting the images to PNG. I've got to work on the whole pipeline for this page here, but I don't want to bore people. So I'm trying to show people how to use ChatGPT for whatever they want to work on. And that's actually a good, let's start installing the Marker, and I want to give some advice on which languages to check out. So I really like web because that's the best way to deploy your work to people in many cases. I mean, video is great, but that's kind of a separate, that's not really code. Also, these days, people are probably more and more likely to be able to download code that you give them and run it. So if you make a cool Python code set, for example, the code that we're going to use here today is Python. I'm not saying that the web is end all be all, but I think it's a great thing to target. And because you can use it locally, you can have it on one of your computers, and any of your other computers or cell phones on your local network can use it. And then if you ever decide to, you can publish it to the whole world on a cheap, like $5 a month server that can hold as many websites as really you want to put on it. So it makes sense to me to target web. And so the languages involved with web are HTML, JavaScript, and CSS on the front end. And then on the back end, you have a number of choices. I love PHP because I came from like it's like the poor man's server-side language because it's so easy to get running on the cheapest servers out there. That's why WordPress is so popular, because it's so easy to get it up and running because how ubiquitous PHP is. So I think PHP is a good bet. But then also there's like Node.js or Python you can also use for having your back end server-side programming languages. And those are important if you need something a little bit more complex. So you can do a lot with just JavaScript in terms of making your page dynamic. Like everything we just covered here on this page here was just a simple bit of JavaScript. That's what the script tag is here. Rich in the chat says, that's awesome. I'm bullying ChatGPT and made a simple evolution ecosystem simulator in HTML format. Okay, that sounds awesome. Yeah, and there's a lot of cool visualization tools that might help. There's stuff like D3, 3JS. I like jQuery, which back in the day when we used to program by hand, not having to just not able to just use English. jQuery made it really easy to write code like this. So you don't have to remember document.get element by ID. It's just in jQuery, use the $sign parentheses. And then since we're getting an ID, it's the hash sign. And we do commands. And then we just do .html commands.join. So this made it easy to do shorthand stuff. And there's a lot of stuff that you can do with jQuery that JavaScript just takes a lot more code. But I've gotten to the point where a lot of times I'll just use the JavaScript now that I've learned it. For example, if I'm on like I was looking at this earlier. I was getting a ghost script error because I think it was because I had a comma in my folder name. It's always like the weirdest stuff that gives the issues. Extracting all the text, no problem. Or excuse me, the images from the PDF. That's easy. But there's a comma in your folder name. All right. So what's cool is on ChatGPT, I can just click this button here and read aloud. Which doesn't make, which we don't really need here.
This error indicates that GhostScript is unable to load.
So I'm going to turn it down for a second. For example here, if we want to speed this up, because I feel like it talks kind of slow, and it's probably pot calling the kettle black to people who watch this show, but I just want to consume the information as fast as possible. So what I can do here is document. This is something called the console, which you can open up on any website if you're on your computer in a browser, which opens up a whole lot of doors for data extraction, for debugging, for enhancing other people's sites to do things that they didn't even build into it. For example, ChatGPT isn't giving me a way to control the speed of this
Ensure that
speech.
the GhostScript process has the necessary permission.
Right, so if I do document.get elements by tag name, what's the tag name? Audio. So put the string audio. Dot playback speed. I'm not sure why it's not helping me here. Playback rate. Playback. So I'll just do var a equals, and then I can see what the... Oh, did they change this? A dot length. No, there's one in here. I think it's playback rate, isn't it? I actually put something out on my Twitter. I'm just going to search for this. ChatGPT from Tim Truth 123. Yeah, I thought. Oh, sorry. So I have to. So this returns an array of elements. I have to get the 0th element in the array, and then I can do playback rate. And then I can set this to 2 if it's still talking.
GhostScript with another file to see if the problem persists. 7. Update or reinstall GhostScript. Ensure that you're using the latest version of GhostScript. If not, consider updating.
All right. So I just wanted to show that we can enhance other websites, or we can even debug other websites. All right. So what do I want to do here? Let's go back to installing Marker. So it's pretty simple. It's just pip install marker-pdf. And what this means is we're installing something for Python. And usually what I do when I install Python stuff, partially because I never really set up my Python correctly, which might just be a skill issue, but this works for me. I just always explicitly give it the whole path to the Python executable. And then you do -m pip, and that's the equivalent of pip typically. And then the command for pip install, the package marker-pdf. I figured I'd do this all live, so let's try it out here. And while it thinks about that, there's another challenge that I wanted to try here. Okay, there it goes. So it's thinking. So this is a great thing about programming, is there's so much code that's just put out there for free. Now I should put the exception here. For Marker, there is this caveat for commercial usage. It's pretty fair in my opinion. It's basically free to use for organization under $5 million USD in gross revenue in the most recent 12-month period, and less than $5 million in lifetime VC angel funding raised. So I'm not sure if you have to actually like reach out. It says research and personal usage is always okay. I think that's fair because it's so hard to make something like this. And when there's like multi-billion-dollar companies that are just ready to exploit the open source research community without giving them a cent, it's frustrating to make this stuff. And all it takes is like a couple huge corporations to buy like a enterprise license or something, which they should be willing to do, and it makes the whole world go round. So, but in large part, there's so much great open source code out there, and it's a beautiful thing. It's a really beautiful thing. So, and that's just part of. It used to be a bigger part, probably, although I think it still is, of computer science. I think because programmers kind of had a good lot due to their profession, oftentimes they're not starving on the street. They benefited from other open source content, and they kind of see the beauty of it. And what else was I going to say? Oh, and it's kind of it's free. It's like you don't have to. It's not like an artist giving away free masterpiece paintings, right? Where you have to sit down and spend 10 hours painting something. It's like, yeah, they sat down and they spent 10 hours painting something, so to speak. But then it's just like, oh, you upload it and everyone just downloads it and runs it on their own computer. Like there's no cost to distribute and to copy it at that point. All right, enough of that spiel. So something else I wanted to work on here is I'm trying to make some more educational content on machine learning and how to make these neural networks work for us. And something I was trying to do here, you can see the starting point, is visualize matrices. So this is a 5x2 matrix, which means 5 rows, 2 columns. And I wanted to make something here that would help me show matrix multiplication. So I could go through each step of the, let's see, neural, where it helps to go to this bar, neural network visualizer. So this is one that I'm working for a video here. And I've finally fixed, I don't know if you've seen this in prior videos with the biases indicated on the nodes. I just want to make a note that I had a bug in my, this is a jQuery plugin that I put together with the help of ChatGPT to visualize neural networks. And there was an issue where everything was like offset to the left. Like there used to be a number on this node to show a bias, which makes no sense because there's nothing to do with bias. Certainly not a single bias on the input node. Again, as we covered, and check out my last video because I don't want to reiterate this, but in between each of these columns is where the actual implementation of a layer is in the code. So in this case, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 linear transformations. So 6 multiplications of a matrix from left to right. So you might have 1,000 items here. Say you're trying to guess the y value for each x value, and then you're going to plot it on a chart. Well, you might have, well, in that case, you need like 1,000 different samples to make that continuous function on your chart. So you'd have an array here of I think it'd be 1,000 rows. Although I could be wrong about that. I think it's 1,000 rows. It's either that or 1,000 columns. And then it would be multiplied by your weights in this first linear layer. So there would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 weights. And I personally, I've seen it before, I think, on YouTube videos. But personally, I want to see the whole transformation process. And I'm making a video to do that, to show an example of, okay, here's a batch of X values coming in. Here's the weights that are going to be multiplied. Here's the resultant product array, or a matrix, excuse me. And then after you multiply that first matrix multiplication, you'd add all these numbers to the outputs. And then you do that again. So basically it's the input nodes times the weights plus the biases. And then you have that over and over again until you get to your output. So I think these neural networks are fascinating because of how efficient they are. It's just a number of multiplication steps to encapsulate everything we're looking at here. And so a cool thing that I wanted to build here is this matrix visualizer. And I already have it pretty well built for a single matrix. That's right here. It's 141 lines. Like, I'm pretty amazed at how much we can code with the help of ChatGPT. So I'm trying to show people what's possible. And the best, I don't know if I should call them best practices, but what I've found to be the best practices. Such as if I'm working here and I have a pretty good snapshot, a pretty good check mark, and I don't want to screw this code up too badly, but I do want to extend it. What I should do is just copy it all, paste it to a new file, and then do like, instead of visualize matrix notation, let's do visualize matrix multiplication. Save that off. And then we can basically pass this over to ChatGPT. And this will help me explain to you what I'm trying to do here. So I have this code to visualize matrices. Which, did you know that matrices comes from the word for mother? Just a little etymological factoid for you. The matrix, the mother. It's kind of sad how these words get so ruined in meaning. People think of the Matrix and it's like this terrible thing, but it's like, doesn't everyone love their mother? And aren't mothers the best? Kind of a weird word to choose for all this and for that dystopian movie. All right, so what we want to do here, change or extend this, or let's do enhance this code to instead show a matrix multiplication. I want to enter two matrices into two text boxes. So we'll say in JSON format as above. So currently what it does, and just by pasting the code, it'll understand what I'm talking about, is I have this matrix format. And actually, I actually have a an example that I did of a pass through a neural network. In this, yeah, I have here, let's see if I can remember how this worked. Matrix before step 0, matrix after step 0, matrix before. So actually this isn't what I need, because this shows me like snapshots of a matrix going through the network. I should have saved off the weights and the bias matrices as well, so I can actually see the work, or what was multiplied to get each of the next steps. But we'll get this. There's something that I always have to look up. Let's just use ChatGPT for this too. So I'll just do Control K, starts a new chat. I just end up having so many ChatGPT windows open, which I think is a good thing, because we're just extracting from this. And for $20 a month, I mean, I've never paid for like YouTube Premium. I've never paid, well, I did when I was a kid, but I will never give Netflix another dime. I don't pay for Hulu. I don't do, like, I'm not just the kind of person just to pay, for all these services out there for propaganda. But ChatGPT is different because it's writing code for me. So that's why I'm like, okay, yeah, deal. $20, fine. But I try to get the most use out of it I can. So let's just ask it here. What is the rule for matrix shapes that are permitted to be multiplied together? So I think it's like the number of rows of the first matrix has to be, oh, I'm not going to guess, but it's one of those. Okay, so if matrix A has m rows and n columns, then matrix B has to have, okay, so matrix B has to have the same number of columns as matrix A has rows. I remember I took a linear algebra class in college, and we had to do a lot of matrix multiplication by hand, which I'm actually thankful for. I wish I remembered it, but it's probably a good exercise. So let me just explain to it and see how close I can get here. So enhance this code to instead show a matrix multiplication. Result notation and result, let's say. I want to enter two matrices in JSON format as above into two text boxes. When I click the button, it will show matrix 1 numbers. Let's see if I can get this. Times matrix 2 numbers equals product matrix. Can you also give me an example of two matrices in this JSON format we can use? Just put them in the text boxes. Okay, so matrix 1 numbers times matrix 2 numbers equals product matrix. The next thing I want to do is also underneath, I want to see a worksheet which shows which numbers from matrix A and B were multiplied and the value of their product. No, it's not product, is it? It's all that math I had to take. I can't remember anything. Just do the resultant matrix. Okay, so also I want to be able to mouse over the numbers in the final resultant matrix. Let's put one more line up in the above. When I mouse over a multiplication in the worksheet, it should highlight with colored circles the involved numbers in matrix, in all three matrices. Also, I want to be able to mouse over the numbers in the final resultant matrix and see via colored circle highlighting which of the two numbers in the matrices A and B were multiplied together. Okay. Let's see how it does. Also, we can see that this software finished here. So it installed successfully. A little confused about what it's installing or uninstalling here. Hopefully it didn't uninstall all those things. I'm currently running this script too. Okay, I have to enter one more time. The last PNG just finished. I'm running this script. Oh, well, it finished. Okay. 10 million epochs training basically the same neural network that we were just looking at. Where was it? This architecture neural network, we got it down to a very low loss, which is good. Means that when we put numbers in, it gets pretty close to the actual data. 0.0000314. So I'm putting together a video just to demonstrate how these networks work. Okay, a couple of things here. Now we can go back to Aesop's Fables. And what I want to do is find where the PNGs start. I'm just going to delete all these JPEGs now. I don't need those anymore. Okay. Hopefully I can just refresh this page here. There we go. So now I can see for all these pages, although there's a bug here, page 0 isn't right. Shoot. Got to figure out the workflow. It's been a while. There's a way to import these properly, and I'm not doing it, but it's okay. We're mostly just trying to... Shoot. Well, let's see. This is the book scan folder. We can look at another example. Here's Webster's Dictionary. Okay, it's page 1, page 2, page 3. Can I undo this? Okay, let's just make another calculator. Just to show how this works, because I'm in the wrong naming format. Can you make a calculator in the following format for renaming, for giving me the commands to run Windows command line, or let's just do Windows PowerShell. I think it's the same thing. To rename files like so, and then we just give it like an example. Another cool tip on Windows is if something's selected and you click F2, it does a rename. It opens up this thing and you can copy the name. So if we go back to Aesop's Fables and click this, so I'll again paste a list of absolute paths to PNGs with the naming format like that, and you are to give me Windows command line commands to change these names to this format. Here's a... Fire that off. Don't have to watch it. Okay, so let's go back, see how the matrix multiplication went. Here's the enhanced code to visualize matrix multiplication. Okay, let's see how it does. So I kind of gamify it in my mind. I try to, the first step is to get a good first response from the AI. And then you want to give it really constructive feedback and really targeted problems and make it clear what it got wrong. But you don't want to get in a chain of conversations where it's like 1,000 comments back and forth later. It's really good to start with a powerful first message that prompts a really good response. I call that the bootstrapping step. And then the other steps, you're trying to iteratively improve it. And it's good to be picky and precise in all these steps. So let's open up a new tab here. Again, just teaching my favorite tools of the trade. If you middle mouse click, aka clicking on the scroll wheel on the refresh button, it'll open it up in a new tab, a copy of the page that you were just on. So I use that a lot. Visualize matrix multiplication. Spelled that wrong. Multiplication.html. Of course, it gave me an example that has the same dimensions, which isn't what I wanted. Okay. It's a little bit clashy with the yellow, but I can just do that with CSS. The main thing that is wrong here, well, there's a lot that's wrong. All right, let's just start giving it a laundry list of things to improve upon here. Oops, that's not what I meant. So again, be very picky. Oh, we can also do this. This finished up. So let's make a new calculator. Again, I go to an existing file in the folder, Control N, paste, and then save. It's going to be right in the right folder. rename images to book import format. This is probably a one-off because in the future, I'm not going to really need this, so I don't need to add it to my index like we did the other one. And then here's another trick. Control-Alt-S if you're in Notepad++, gives you the file name. You can just copy that. That says save as, but it also just helps get the file name. So again, I can just do this. Actually, I don't need this page anymore, so we'll just change this. All right, again, going back to this folder, or sorry, I wasn't even showing my screen. Going back to this, I can just right-click, copy as path. It's going to get me a big list of all the paths. Generate renames. Where's my page one? Okay, well, no. Do dot. I don't know why it missed page one. Oh, it's at the bottom here. Okay. And it's always good to try one of these by hand. Looks like it got it. Okay, so we can just copy these. Sorry. This should be faster because it doesn't actually have to... Oh, what is that? Page 2 does not exist. I'm seeing a lot of weird pages here. I don't know if they're broken or not. It's always something. Yeah, these look... Oh, no, it's fine. Page 278 looks fine. A hen and golden eggs. The hen that laid her golden eggs. That's an interesting story. Who is this? Not Aesop, but Aeneas? Aeneas? I don't even know how to say that. All right. So I don't know why it couldn't find page 2. Oh, probably because I already had... Oh, we did page 2 as a one-off, right? So it's not going to be able to rename it. Got it. All right, so let's continue. Hopefully people are picking up these tricks along the way. So here is the one that we're working on here. Decent, but we need to fix a few things. The matrices should have different sizes, but obviously must be multiplication compatible. When I mouse over matrix A or B, there's a bug where a number of arbitrary highlights occur that make no sense. They are, or all three matrices are incorrectly embedded in a single pair of braces. There should be a pair of braces for each of the three matrices. What else? It's always good to try to find as many things wrong as possible on the second thing. Okay, also, when I mouse over the third matrices values, the proper numbers for matrix A and B are not highlighting. Instead, other items from within the third resultant matrix are erroneously lighting up. Please review, debug, and fix all these errors. Okay, let's also, while we wait for that, it's good to juggle items around is another thing I've learned. So let's refresh this. Hopefully that formatting fixed the numbering. Okay, so now we actually have something. But, so this is something that I know I need to fix. There's like a bug where it starts with these little tiny pages here. If I just do that and do a refresh. That's a little bit better. So I don't want to go through here, which I could, and just, you know, fine tune all of the different. I mean, this doesn't even look like it has columns in this case, other than. So let's show you how that works. So I can do change column rules, because starting at page 17, there's only one column per page. So what I can do is like new rule. Or is this broken now? Shit. Rule start values is undefined. So let me just show you how we can debug any arbitrary page, be it ours or somebody else's. If you click on something and it's not working as it should, what we can do is just open up the console, so F12 or Control-Shift-I, and see what's going on. If there's a big red error in the console, that might be the issue. This is definitely the issue. So it's telling me on line 239 of book importer that rule start vowels is undefined. So that's definitely one of my variables. If I click on this link over on the right, it's going to teleport me to the right spot in the code. And what I can do is put a breakpoint here. So for some reason, it's deleting a UI, which I'm not exactly sure why. So this is jQuery for, let's see if I can zoom in for everybody. This is jQuery for when the add rule button is clicked. And so the dot here means any element with this class. And this is a listener. It's setting up a listener with jQuery so that when something is clicked and it's the add rule button class, it runs this code. So let me just fire that off. And I love debuggers because I hate bugs. No, I'm just kidding. Well, I do, but I like debuggers because it can give us the context of what's going wrong. And this is a great tool if you are programming, even if you don't really know what you're typing into the text editor and you're using ChatGPT to generate all your code. This can help you get really specific criticism to pass back. And you can be like, oh, this line's error, and you can copy and paste this line. You can say the error is, and you can copy and paste the error. And then you can try to see what the values are at this point. So I can copy this. Sometimes it works when you're just mousing over stuff. So that looks undefined in this case. But let's just go to the console, take this value. Yeah, it's undefined. Which means I shouldn't be trying to delete one of its attributes. So something's gone very wrong. So what we can see is how it just got instantiated on this line here. I'm doing a deep copy, which means that typically when you take an object and you assign it to a variable, it's not really making a copy of that. It's just one object that all these variables are pointing at. So when you change that object, all of them are going to change. So sometimes it's exactly what you want. I think it makes sense for them to make that the default behavior in JavaScript. It's not always the default behavior. It depends on which language you're using. It's always for JavaScript. But there's a library that you can download called OWL, deep copy. So that's what I did here, but it's deep copying something that doesn't exist. Page rule.ruledef. So if we paste this into the console, you can see it's undefined, but I can take this part off. So page rule is -1. What is page rule? Page rule is get rule to use So I can put this function call. You can see it's a function call because it has these parentheses. So this is the name of the function that we're calling. And then every item that's comma separated is a parameter. So that's one parameter, and that's another parameter. So let's just fire this so I can remember what we're looking at. Cur page is not a number. That's not probably right. So we do have column cropping rules. That's good. It's just one rule from all pages from 0 to 10,000. Have two columns. These are the dimensions, right? So what we can do here is figure out why cur page is not a number. That's what NaN means, because it should be a number. So parse int cur prev page in dot val. So some reason I thought that there would be a number here. But it's an empty string. So I'm curious, what is this? Cur page prev in. So I can paste this selector here. That's a jQuery selector. And there's two inputs here, which is interesting. So this is book details pop-up. So that's this pop-up we're looking at. But it's not set to anything. Okay, I think I might know why. Okay, this is just a little buggy, obviously. So I think if we were to click here, click on one of these. Well, so we're paused in the debugger. Let's disengage the breakpoint and hit continue, that little play button. Oh, sorry, I wasn't showing my full screen. There's like a little play button here that this pause button turns into when you're paused on let me just show this again. So actually, let me show you a couple things about the debugger. If I put this debugger up a few lines and I hit the new rule button, we pause on line 236 and I can step over, go to 237, and in this case, since it's highlighting a function call, I can click step in, and this goes into that function call. And now I can see, okay, although Firefox is really messing up. It shouldn't be messing up like that. But I can copy these parameters here. This is param1 called rules. And param2 is the issue. It's not a number. And we could see if we step over, I went too far, but you can also step out. If you've stepped into something, you go back out. So very powerful tool that you can see the context of the code where it's breaking. And also what's cool is if you have the debugger open and you hit play, it automatically puts a breakpoint right before it breaks. So we're paused in the debugger, which can be a little bit annoying if you don't know you're paused in the debugger and you're trying to click and you're like, the whole page is broken. No, you're just paused in the debugger. It gives you an opportunity to see what went wrong. We already know what went wrong, and we can just hit play here. Right. So just make sure if everything breaks and you have the debugger open and there's an exception that you're paused on, you need to hit the play button. Okay, so I think if I clicked this, it's going to open this up, and this is showing me the page number. And then new rule. I'm not sure why new rule has to get the current. So I think if we set this cur prev page in, so let's just refresh from a blank slate here. And again, I don't mean to like get into the weeds other than this is a great way to learn how to develop websites. So it's not so much about here's how you could fix this page called bookimporter.php. No, it's just how you can fix any page when you're running into issues. So we could use this on the matrix multiplication page that we're having issues with, except for that's a really short page that I'm chatting with ChatGPT about, so I'm just going to have it fix it, right? Just have ChatGPT fix that. But this is a much longer page, so I've got to actually do the old school way. Okay, so what I want to do here is if we go to this and open up the pop-up, at this stage, I basically just want to see what, because it picks a random page here. It put 79 in there. So what I can do is go to debugger, I'm noting this name of this book. I'm going to save what is on my clipboard. But if I copy this book prev image, I want to see where this gets set, because I know it's picking a random page. I just need to put that number in that text box and it'll all work. It doesn't even really need it, other than I think when you click new rule, it copies the current page in terms of the columns and stuff, just to give a good starting point. So if we go to debugger, this is a great tool. One of my favorite tools. It's awesome. It's also in Chrome. A lot of these features are going to be in Chrome and Firefox, if not all of them. I think everything I've mentioned so far. All the major browsers. So Safari, even Internet Explorer. It's just ubiquitous. So if I hit Control Alt F, no, what is it? Excuse me. Control Shift F, it's going to give me Find in Files. One of the best tools. You can just paste it in here, and I can see every time that the code references this page over here, which has this big image, which I want to. So, okay, look right here. Okay, this is when I do a key up. So if I was to change that little text box, it's going to put the page here. I can show you some of that in a second. It's not too important. It's more just the functionality of this page. We're just trying to fix this bug, which there's a workaround. I could get it working in a second, just clicking this first and then clicking new rule. But I do want to fix this. It's good whenever you come across a bug that's annoying that you don't even know as the developer of the site what's going on until you look at the code. It's good to fix those types of things. Okay, so right here, this is when we click the. Okay, so I'm just going to find the relevant line instead of trying to explain the whole code base. It might be this. Render selected rule. So let's just try this button again. No, it didn't engage this breakpoint. So let's keep looking. I mean, we could, for instance, put a breakpoint on all these and then just see which one hits. Let's do it at least for a couple of these. Open crop rules pop-up for book. Render cur rule split. Might be it. This is open crop rules book pop-up for page. Okay, I think it's actually this here. Load random page. So let's try this. Do a refresh. All the breakpoints will stay there. Load random page for book preview element. Right here. So I'm going to click step in, but I think that's the key thing. Oops. Step out. Step in. Okay, there we go. Load random page. I think this is the main thing I'm looking for. So if we go through here, cur page is not a number. Index to use is 45. Random image. See, random image dot page. Okay, right here. So what I like to do sometimes as a sanity check is just figure out the code in the console, and then we can utilize it. So random image dot page. That's what I want to put into this text box here. So dot val sets the value of a text box with jQuery, and the value is going to be the page. And I want to make sure that I remember where to put this if it is the winning code. So I can just go to my source here. Again, this is all in my IIS, so it's anything I change will automatically be affected in the browser if I do a refresh. Okay, so I just want to kind of bookmark that. And let's see. So now I'm going to hit run, new rule. It works now. Perfect. All right, so now I'm just going to make this change over in the code, the random index right afterwards. That's not it. Right afterwards, we put this line. So console lets us figure out what is the code that we want to incorporate into our code base and make sure it works first. All right, so now with that all in mind, I'm going to close the debugger, refresh everything. Aesop's Fables loads up properly here. I wanted to remember what the just close this for now. Oh, so at page 17 it all changes. So it's not the right one. I'm clicking all the wrong buttons. Okay, at page 17, so new rule. Let's just change this one up here. From 17 to 1000. Why is that? No valid pages are available for this rule due to higher priority rule overrides. That's a bug. Okay, again, not really the point of this video, although now I just feel inclined to debug it. Let's see. From 0 to... Okay. It's kind of working now. I just want to change this to one column. So this rule here has 2 columns, although now it's broken. Man, this is finicky. Let's refresh this. So there's 2 rules now. For some reason, I thought it was the highest rules took priority. Huh. Okay, it is actually. So 0 to 16 is 2 columns. 17 on is 1 column. And I've got to refresh again. It's almost what I wanted to show here. This is the key part here, the actual content of the book. Okay, you get the idea. So now we have 2 columns in the first 16 pages, and then starting at page 17, 1 column. But what's actually going to really be a help is you can see how that's kind of annoying to do. Even with the bugs taken out when I eventually get there, it's a little bit burdensome. So that's where this package comes in, Marker. And I wanted to see how well this does. So my GPU is all cooled down from the neural network that just finished training. So why don't we give this a shot here? Basically, we just have to run it with this command here. We already installed it. And here's how we convert a single file. So let's just copy this and see if we can figure this out. So marker underscore single is the command. Let's see if this actually is installed. That's not good. It's not recognized. Let's try opening a new. Well, I don't think it's going to work if it doesn't recognize this. What about marker? Term marker is not recognized. All right, let's ask ChatGPT. So we'll just say, I installed a Python pip module, or I think that's what it's called. And it says it should give me a command line command I can run, like this. and we'll give it this. So just giving it some context here. It probably doesn't know this exact library, but we'll see what it can do. But when I try running it, the command is not recognized. And so it's not in the path, but where, okay, this is interesting. Let's find out where the marker single script is installed. Exactly. Okay, awesome. Let's try that. It's in my roaming Python folder. So let's just, is it LS on Windows too? No. We gotta just go in the directory. Can't find it. That's weird. That is weird. Okay, there it goes. So I can just, I don't know why I end up doing this. I sometimes just prefer to use the EXEs directly. So probably being a bad influence, but we're just going to find where this command is for what was it called? Marker? Marker single. So with that in mind, if we just have the absolute path to this exe instead of trying to be fancy and cute with the actual way to do it with the single thing here. All right. So the path to my file I have right here. Path to my output folder. I can come up with one for you here. So rename this to marker out. Let's use that. All right. Max page is 10. I don't really want to, well, we'll just do it for now. Just keep in mind. So those are what's called, those are what are called flags. These down here, extra parameters that you can specify. The different scripts will give you as options. And it's good to know because when you're writing your own scripts, you might think, oh, it'd be great if I could sometimes pass this option or tell it some additional parameters when you're running your own Python script that you wrote. So knowing that this exists and is possible makes it as simple as when you're chatting with ChatGPT to say, can you give me some additional options on the command line as flags or etc. So it's worth pointing that out. All right, ready to try it? Also, I'm going to look at my GPU, see if it spins up a little bit. Because from what I could tell, it seems like this is some sort of a neural network model for detecting the column's position on the page. And then it tries some sort of an OCR. I'm not seeing my CPU spike at all. It looks like it's still starting up here. These are just like warnings or diagnostic info. While we wait on that, we can see how the new code with the matrices is. Like I can just sit around doing this all day. It's almost infinitely amusing to me to be able to write code like this. Okay, I have to hit continue generating. Sometimes it doesn't finish up because it's too long. All right, so updated code. Let's try this out. Okay, it's firing off too. So it's grabbing some models, it looks like, from the internet. Safe tensors, I believe, are descriptions of a trained model that we're grabbing. So we'll keep an eye on that. I do want to see if this matrix multiplication worked. Nope. Come on, ChatGPT. The matrices are not displayed properly. And the mouse over functionality I requested is totally not working. So we'll paste an image here for it. Well, let's see, it's in no way working. I don't even know how to describe this. It's so wrong. When I mouse over the final result matrix, no elements are lit up. For example, when I mouse over 58, it should highlight. Okay, so we're getting to the point here where it says recognizing text, 0%. So 58, it should be, let's copy this. Hopefully that's right. It should highlight all of the involved numbers, i.e., currently nothing is highlighted. Likewise, when I hover over the rows in the multiplication worksheet, the relevant numbers should light up. Currently, and wrongly, the only highlights are when I mouse over numbers in matrix A or B, and it just highlights the whole row in matrix A and the whole column in matrix B. Another huge issue is with the notation. It's not, let me just put this before I forget. Also, it shouldn't show .00 for each number, since rounding is not required for whole numbers /ints. Okay, another huge issue is with the notation. It's not showing each matrix independently. They are all wrongly wrapped in a pair of braces when there should be a pair of braces around each, capitalize that, each of the three matrices. All right, so going back here, it did the recognizing text, and now it's detecting the boxes. So I'm thinking back about, we read a little bit from the GitHub page, the README, and it was saying that the text is just kind of a formality it does in order to better recognize the boxes, which makes sense. Because if it starts seeing, for example, over here, if it sees like these words, and it can start seeing like a boundary, an edge. So they might just be feeding, the author of this library might just be feeding all the positions of all the detected words or sentences into their machine learning. And then they've trained it to take those numbers, series of numbers, the X, Y for each of the words, and then figure out where the boundary boxes are. So it's a little bit frustrating. Actually, it seems like maybe it's running on my CPU, which would be erroneous. I'm not sure, though. My GPU didn't really spike. It's a little bit frustrating because it takes a long time here. This is taking a long time. I mean, it's been just a couple minutes, I guess, but oh, there it goes. Finishing reading order. So we'll let that continue. Okay, it saved the markdown. Okay, as soon as I complained about the time, it finished up. Should we see how it did? So here's the output folder. Okay, wow. Very strange output here. Let's just open these up in my notepad. So, okay, this is pretty cool. I mean, it looks like there's a lot of mistakes there. See, I don't know how helpful this is, actually. For this book, it didn't... Well, actually, let me see. The first 10 pages might just be a bad subset. Ah, shoot. Oh, no, that's the wrong one. Although it might be the same story. The same fable. We got to find the key, right? To all these millions of fables. Let me just refresh this. Okay. Yeah, the first 10 pages are not the best examples, but I don't know if there's a way to offset start at page 17. Okay, so let me also see, did my CPU usage go down? Yeah, it seemed like it was really using my CPU a bunch. So I don't know. I'm pretty sure I have PyTorch only installed for my GPU, so I don't even know what it's doing. So I'm not sure about how helpful this is ultimately going to be, but I might be inspired by this to do my own version of this. Let's see. It's using OCR my PDF. Should reverse engineer this a little bit. How can I get the positions? Sorry, the positions of the recognized text XY offsets using OCR my PDF. All right, let's also see how this is going here. Continue generating. I should maybe do some commentary. It's interesting. We've been eyeing 6.6, unfortunately, has been pointed out as a possible release date for GPT-5, or whatever they call the next model. And interestingly enough, there's been some big news recently about ChatGPT and a massive outage they had over the past day. It's been like, I don't know, 12 plus hours of outage affecting, seems like billions of people. So I'm not sure what to make of it. It could be a publicity stunt even. Maybe in anticipation of this next release. Just trying to get in the news as much as possible, get people thinking about it. That might be one reason why they put out 4.0, because people weren't really too impressed with GPT-4, and then they try to impress people and get people hooked on GPT, and then when the next one releases, it'll be talked about a bunch. I'm not sure. Or, another leading theory is that they were starting to release the code for the next version of the model. Potentially, I could see them starting to spin up servers. So if they say have, I don't know, 1 million, that's probably not as many as they have. Let's say they have 10,000 GPUs that service all the requests incoming from the website and the API. Well, what if they were anticipating the new release and they wanted to be able just to flick a switch and make it available? I could see them potentially saying, okay, let's take 50 or more % of these GPUs and set them up with the new model and just kind of partition them. Nobody can use them yet. And then the others would become overburdened because all the requests, all the traffic that's coming in, they couldn't handle. Something like that, where they're getting ready to release the next set of code and they break something, or the resources get spread too thin across the servers that could actually be used by people at that point in time. So I don't know. It could be indicative of something coming, or they could just be messing with us. And they're like, oh, you thought you were going to get a new version of the model? Here, we're just going to break it for everybody. I don't know. We'll have to see. I don't know what to expect even. Man, it just keeps messing up. I thought this was going to be a better demo. So sometimes it is helpful to switch the models up. We can, for example, click this little button here and do GPT-4. Oh, that's weird. You can't even use... Okay, it doesn't support file attachments. 3.5 doesn't. Okay, so we're going to try with GPT-4, the other model, which some people think is much better. I'm not sure. It's interesting here, it's giving me the full code, which isn't its normal behavior. I wonder if... there's a lot of tricks they could be doing behind the scenes. Like, they could just be serving up 4.0 with 4, because I never remembered 4 going this fast. So, given the hypothetical... Oops, sorry, not showing my screen. The hypothetical example of... say they had 10 or 100,000 GPUs servicing all their clients, all their users, and they partition off 50,000 for their new model that they're about to release in preparation. Then they're getting overwhelmed because people are using 4 and 4.0. And what if they're just going to route all the traffic for 4 to 4.0? Like, that seems, based on what I'm seeing here, I think that's what they're doing. And they're breaking stuff along the way, it looks like. This is a little bit hypothetical, but it'd be interesting to see if we could catch them in the act. I might do some deep diving in the console. See if we can figure out if they're using... it got caught up here. I think when I hit the continue generating button, it screwed up. I think they're just servicing... I think they're serving up 4.0 when people request 4 here, which is kind of scandalous. I was trying out their new... I'm doing a development on this page here. Let's see, data... browser. 1 second. Okay, so I was doing some development on this page here, and I was playing around with their batch functionality. Because when it loads here, let's go to like this data set, the architects and engineers for 9/11 truth. So this page here, I'm calling it Discover Grid, and I'll be releasing it to all of you soon enough. But basically it allows us to manage a bunch of different data sets, and then for each data set we can do a bunch of cool things with AI to bring in more information. For example, the summary here was AI generated summary, and there's 3,200 rows, so I can do batch operations in mass. And for each of these types of jobs, I could do like summarize this text, testimony 9/11, or statement 9/11. So these are placeholders for the actual field data. And then we can, random, pick whatever one we want. Let's find a good one. It was controlled demolition, floor by floor, pancake style vertical collapse with columns blown by sequences of explosive charges. Column sections examined by me at Urban Foundation Engineering showed melted flanges on 3-inch thick A36 steel sections. So I can try out all these different models that I'm currently tracking. You could, for example, Mistral Large. Ah, shoot, it changed the... It's not what I meant. It's kind of annoying. I didn't mean for that to happen. I've got to fix that. It's a little buggy. Because I want to be able to try it for each of the different models and see how they compare with the same input. After watching the precision with which the towers collapsed, I was then and remain today of the opinion it was a controlled demolition job. I did calculations at the time, estimating that the rubble pile was much too small. The material had to disappear or vaporize in order for the pile to be as small as it was. Conservatively, the pile of rubble would have to have been about 30 stories deep, accounting for the 7 stories below grade being packed tight with debris, no air spaces. A pyramid with a base of 600 feet square. And he says, anyone who's ever witnessed a controlled demolition would have immediately recognized this signature in this collapse. So, for example, we could try this on Mistral Large. Basically just saying, summarize this text. My point is that we can try out all the different models, and some of the models that people might want to use are the OpenAI models. And OpenAI has this interesting feature that I wanted to leverage called batch functionality. And so since I'm, in this case, basically queuing up, if I was to run something on each of these rows, 3,200 queries to ChatGPT in this case. I'm not sure if Mistral's going to pull through. Maybe it's still outputting. Could be broken somewhere. But let's just do like Llama from Grok. Actually, I don't have Grok hooked in on that computer. I should do that. We'll do Open Router. Pretty good one. Okay, that was much faster. But my point is, instead of doing one off, you can do batch operations to ChatGPT, and you save 50% on the cost. So that definitely makes sense for a project like this, and it adds more value so that people can utilize the batch functionality without writing any code, just by using my software here. But my point is, long story short, or long, I was playing around with their batch functionality, and it's supposed to take up to 24 hours. But I had started it off before, just a little test with like 2 stupid questions just to see, or actually it was an embedding test. And I started it yesterday. It's been more than 24 hours, and I think they dropped the ball on it. Let me go check my other computer and see if it's finished. It's moved from in progress to finalizing. So there has been some minor progress, but it's still not done. And I feel like it's been more than 24 hours. But that's how batching works. They say, basically in exchange for them being able to run it at their convenience whenever there's a little lull in the demand, they can run their batches. So it's a price saving thing for everybody. And so they say, well, you might have to wait up to 24 hours, but you'll save 50%. And so I'm like, well, you got to plug into that to anyone who might want to use this ChatGPT stuff. Especially if they release, like imagine if they release, or when they release their next major model. And we might just have like a small window of time and we see this huge value and we're like, oh, this is actually incredibly valuable. The deal makes sense, just hypothetically, maybe not. Give them a cent for each of these queries, get back really useful information that we can archive and save. And when they censor it later, for example, we still have copies of it, use it for whatever we need to use it for. This software, I'm hoping, will be a huge benefit to us in extracting massive amounts of useful data. I'm seeing that there's some chats coming in. Let me shout out some people. Shout out to Kimmy again. Rich in the chat. Rich says, working on a HTML format page. It makes a great live wallpaper thanks to Wallpaper Engine. Oh, that's cool. I got to check that out. I'm getting massive blocks of code from GPT-O. It's crazy, but it still has flaws. Exactly. That's my experience as well. Kimmy says, I can barely run my Mac. I wish I was more adept at your info. I just love nature and growing shit. I'm not able to move into the 2030 agenda. Well, I'm not asking anybody to move into the 2030 agenda. That'd be crazy. Kimmy says, can you please tell me where all this work you're doing benefits humanity? Wow. I'm just going to skip over that. Jeez. Glom says, yo, how many more years left before Skynet goes live? People are all worried about AI because now we have some tools. And I'm worried about AI. I've been for a long time because of how it's used to weaponize social media. And basically they're mind controlling people with super advanced AI. I've been screaming about it for a long time. And it's basically like if you go to chess.com and play their top level of computer. And you play for a while and it'll, usually beat us, right? It's going to beat us because it's better at us at chess. And that's an example where we know we're playing a computer and the computer is trying to beat us, right? We know that it's a winner-take-all game and the computer is just ruthless and trying to destroy us. And it might lead us into traps. It's looking way ahead at all the moves it can make. And likewise, when people go to YouTube or to Facebook or to Twitter, also, they're basically playing a computer, and instead of the board trying to be conquered, the computer's trying to conquer their minds, getting them to follow people pushing toxic garbage like ivermectin or methylene blue, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what I'm trying to tell people about. That's, I mean, there's a lot of things that I do that are just for research. I think research is always a good thing. And then when something comes along, I can apply my abilities to do research. To answer Kimmy's question about how what I'm doing is benefiting humanity, I've done tons and tons of free work for humanity. And humanity has given me very little in return. But alas, I continue to put stuff out for free and try to help people learn and give people knowledge. And a lot of people can run their computers. I know Kimmy's can't run her computer. A lot of people can. And I'm helping them use their computers better and teaching people how to use ChatGPT to get tons of code, for example, that they can run even when they cancel their subscription to ChatGPT and or ChatGPT goes down. They still have their code. They can run it. They can serve it up on a computer somewhere. So Yeah, I don't really appreciate that. I feel like I've just been here for 2 hours teaching people for free how to program their computers. Jeez. Let's see if there's any other chats. Dan says, "What made you become obsessed with AI?" Well, I get obsessed with all sorts of things. You might notice over time my coverage changes as I see a spark of something. I think AI is going to be the biggest news. Um, One of the most important things. It's like the internet was, or computers. I mean, it's akin to these things. The advent of the internet, or the advent of computers, or the advent of YouTube back in the day. Um, and so I can see what's going on here and what's happening. And I'm just trying to tell people, as a reporter and also as a subject matter expert in programming. And I also see people talking about it totally wrong. Like, using ChatGPT is not adopting Agenda 2030, contrary to what Kimmy's trying to say in the chat. A lot of people want you to be afraid of AI. They want you to eat a bunch of neurotoxic poison, sterilize yourself, lobotomize yourself, and just take yourself out of the gene pool, while they'll all use the technology to their benefit. And I say, why do we let the evil people use the technology? Why not the good people use technology? And if you're afraid of this right here, a neural network that you can program, I don't know what to tell you. This isn't like some evil agenda. This is just math. Now, people are going to utilize neural networks in evil ways, and I'm against that. And it helps to know the technology to be able to recognize it. If you keep seeing, when you're scrolling through Twitter, patterns like people trying to shove ivermectin down your throat, sterilize you, lobotomize you, you might want to think, why are they leveraging what they know about me to get me to take myself out of the gene pool? And I think just recognizing that is probably a help to people. Also, I'm just trying to tell people, like, there are so many books out there that you can download. And then the question is, are you going to sit and read them all? I mean, I think reading is great. I read a lot, but where do you even start? That's another question that comes up. If you have a million PDFs of the best books in the world, the question becomes like, okay, what do I spend my time reading? So for me, I came to a point, to answer Dan's question, where I had such an overabundance of information that I could, turn off the retarded people like Stu Peters and Josh Sigurdson and all these people pushing these crazy poisons. And I could be like, in the Alex Jones and the Joe Rogans, all these retarded people. And they're actually, I don't think many of these people I just mentioned are dumb. I think they know exactly what they're doing. And it's not good. But a lot of people think that they're doing God's work, and they're Tim, what are you doing? You're falling for the Agenda 2030. No. In fact, if you look at the agenda is to prevent people, and this is also to answer Dan's question, the agenda is to prevent people from on their own learning how to use these technologies. Just everyone delegate all the video hosting to YouTube. Everyone delegate all the AI to ChatGPT. And then you see these articles like Time Magazine. Let's see if I can find this. Time Magazine. Extinction AI open weights. Basically calling for throwing independent researchers who publish weights on the internet, which is just a list of numbers, into jail as they advertise alcohol on their website. Oh, but don't publish numbers on the internet, right? Exclusive. U.S. must move decisively to avert extinction level threat from AI, government commission report says. So this is one reason why I'm obsessed with AI. Because I've always been seeking intelligence. I've always been seeking answers. And I can see that this is a window that's not going to be open for long. So, and a lot of my obsessions are fleeting. And they just come and they go. And I think it's important for me to document this as well to anybody who might care. I understand a lot of people are afraid of intelligence, afraid of computers, afraid of neural networks. I'm afraid of certain computers, certain neural networks, Not the ones I'm programming. They're my friends. They're my coworkers, my colleagues. All right, but that's probably enough of that spiel, unless anybody has any more questions on it. So I just wanted to do some examples today, but let me take a step back. What languages are good for people who are trying to do research, which is why I think this is important and why I think this benefits humanity, is because of research and publishing, right? Without research and publishing, where would we be? That's not a world that I want to live in. So this is like the next generation of the printing press, the next generation of the computer. And sitting on the sidelines isn't really my style. So what can we use? Well, I think Python's great for machine learning stuff. And for all these languages I'm about to mention, it's not just the language. There's also all the libraries that people write in that language that you can just really easily install or download. And for AI stuff, there's all these base models that you can train to your liking. For example, BERT and DeBerta for text classification. There's the Llama 3 series for if you want to fine tune a language model to your liking to do the types of outputs or to train it to give it some more additional information. For web stuff, I think you've got to be able to prompt for HTML, CSS, JavaScript. So I wish this example had gone better over here. I'll do this on my own time, but okay, this is pretty cool right here. Let me just do a couple of examples with CSS just to show you, because it seems to have fixed this problem here. So I'm almost at the point where we can make this work. It's a shame that ChatGPT didn't really do it, but let's... Oh, okay, here's an error. I'm not able to recreate that. But one thing I want to do here is see how these are being highlighted, because the color scheme is really clashing. Okay, so you see that I can't really move my mouse, but over on the right-hand side, there's a dot highlight. And then in curly braces, it says background color yellow. So that's decent, but I'm trying to think, how can we make the text stand out? Because it's... So let's maybe try like a blue, a dark blue. Okay, it seems like when I mouse over matrix A, highlight cells, matrix ID. So let's just do this by hand since ChatGPT is failing. Actually, weren't we trying? We tried with GPT 4.0, but it or excuse me, with 4. Like down here it says, oh no, that's 4.0. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, no wait. This is an old script. Okay, so it did cut off here. We tried with 4, but I think they're just routing everything to 4.0 is my guess, which is kind of crazy. And it really would indicate that 5 is coming. I've got to confirm that though. Oh yeah, but you can see it cut off here, which isn't good. We'll just start it again on. See, watch how fast this goes. I wasn't really showing my screen. This doesn't seem like 4 to me. Also, the way that it's responding, like I've used these models enough to think that, to see that this is acting a lot more like 4.0, even though I explicitly told it to use 4. Which is kind of a big telltale sign. Okay, but what was my point? Let's click continue. This is where it broke last time. Yeah, I think it broke again. I think they have something. It says use the GPT. I keep not showing my screen. I'm sorry. I'll show it this time. keeps failing here. Let me, I'm going to open up the debugger in a separate window here. Which will give me some more information on what we're... Let's see if we can catch them in the act here. Serving up... See, it does... No. What? I definitely picked 4. Maybe, I don't know. Let's try it again. With the network open... So this is another tab. I don't really want to show too much since I might show like a key that somebody could use to like use my account, which I don't want. But this is the network tab. So we've already covered console. Hopefully I didn't show anything there. Let me make sure. I'm just going to assume I didn't. But there's the console, the inspector, the debugger, and the network tab is really cool. I should probably show this on my own. Let's just go on a different page here. Okay, let's go to this page. Doc. So this is the network tab. In this case, I just load up a model from a JSON. So you can see down here all the times I talk to my server, which is just my own computer, the local host. You can see it just basically shows you all the times that your website or any website is talking to a server out there. So in the case of ChatGPT, I can see, are they really just serving up everything with 4.0, even when I explicitly request GPT-4? That's my question. And I don't know if they're going to actually... They might just be lying behind the curtains because it does think that it responded with 4. But you can tell that there's an error with their logic because whenever there's a code that's too long and you hit continue, without fail, it's cutting off with 4. At least the 3 times we've tried it so far. So that makes me think that they haven't ironed out all the kinks because this was an unexpected Band-Aid solution. And it really seems like they're acting more like 4.0 here. I know it doesn't sound like it matters that much, but 4.0 is a smaller model. So there's going to be less. So let's try it here. So it says 4. It claims to have responded with 4. I click continue generating and it breaks. Request failed with 4.04. And then there's a JavaScript error. Let's see. So I definitely requested GPT-4. I know this is getting in the weeds here, but I do think that this is telling. I'm not seeing anything jump out as proof here, but other than the way it's responding, it's acting like 4.0, which is a smaller model, which means that it takes less compute. Although I get better results oftentimes for the code I'm trying to generate. My point is, if they're reallocating their servers and their GPUs probably to test a couple days before their next release, but not, and just to have it ready, then the remaining servers have to serve up all these existing models that they have off the shelf, their offerings, which would be 4 and 4.0 and 3.5. But, what's my point? If those few servers that are left to do the bidding of all their users out there can't cope with the load, I could see them just saying, "Oh, let's just call everything 4, or let's use 4.0 even when we're calling it 4," which seems to be what they're doing because it breaks here. I think probably because they haven't ironed this strategy out too much. They had a major outage earlier today. Like 12 hours it was down. All right, I don't want to spend too much time on that. let's just debug this by hand just to show that we don't always have to go through ChatGPT. For example, there's this code here which is just failing miserably. Highlight cells. So I don't know what it's doing here. For each of the elements in matrix B, it's adding a highlight. Now, does this run? I guess one question I have is this. Yeah, that's only running when I mouse over this, and it's not actually doing anything. So let's just comment that out for now. So I do like how this is working down here. That's pretty much all I really need. Other than when I moused over these, and again, I'm really annoyed by the, it should have these brackets around each of these pairs of, each of these matrices. So it's missing 1, 2, 3, 4. But it's pretty close. It's just I don't like the color scheme here, which I think we should be able to fix just by fixing this CSS rule for highlight. So basically, this is saying use yellow as the background whenever you're highlighting something. So let's just maybe play around with one of these to get us a good color here. If we go background, let's see, blue. Something like that should be better. So the way CSS works is you have these selectors, which can be sometimes very simple or sometimes more complex. Just a little quick rundown. The most common things that you should learn is the dot sign, the period, means you're talking about a class. So this is talking about any element with the class highlight. So what's cool here is that we can just add highlight class onto any element that we want to light up, and then it'll apply this extra rule. Then there's that hash sign, which I'm not seeing any examples of here. But if it was a hash sign instead of a dot, it'd be talking about the ID highlight. So the way IDs and classes work is for an ID, there can only be one element on the entire page with that ID. For classes, you can have a bunch of elements with that class. Every element can just have a single ID, but an element can have a lot of classes or 0 classes. CSS can get even more involved. For example, here we have a comma. So this is applying all of these rules to anything that's comma separated here. So body gets all these rules, and the HTML tag gets all these rules. So comma is really helpful if you want to save yourself from, I mean, it's the same thing as doing this. But that's just redundant and unnecessary. So the comma is very helpful in such situations. Then there's the space, which means any descendants. So this is any table element that's within a matrix class element. So just a quick rundown. There's more cool things that you can do with CSS. But now that we've done that, you can see that the color clashing isn't as bad. We can also do stuff like text shadow. Text shadow. I think it's I usually do 1 pixel, 1 pixel, 2 pixels. So the first number is the left offset, the second is the top, or maybe it's top then left. The third is the radius of the shadow, and then the color of the shadow we'll just do black. So that gives a little bit more contrast as well. Not my favorite font, but what's good about this font is it's, well, we don't actually need that. So a good place to get fonts is Google Fonts. Although actually there might be some downsides to this. I don't know how much tracking they do behind the scenes. But for this page, it's fine. Like, Roboto here is better. So we can just copy this code. Sorry, I wasn't showing my screen. Copy that embed code. And instead of doing the mono font, just do Roboto. Looks a little bit better. So I think that's really all I wanted. Let's see if we can figure out how to do the braces, the canvas. See how that's working. So visualize matrix, left canvas, right canvas. See, it's doing let's see. So what if we just did left canvas, right canvas, then left canvas, right canvas B, and then left canvas, right canvas C. And then we have left canvas, matrix A, right canvas, times left canvas B, right canvas B, left canvas C, right canvas C. Then we have to, I mean, it's not the prettiest code. Then down here, left canvas height, width. So we can just put a comment here just to kind of separate this. Braces for matrix A, for B, and for C. B, C, all right. So A, B, and C should be almost there. Left canvas B, right canvas B, just gotta change all these to the appropriate thing. A good thing about many of these code editors is you can highlight or you can highlight one variable name and it'll highlight all the other references. So I'm realizing I've got to change this and this. I think we're good now. Visualize matrix is not defined. Redeclaration of constants. So this is one reason to not use constants. Oh, it's actually, we do need to adjust these things. Let's just do this. So I always used var to make a new variable in JavaScript, especially because when I was coming up programming to support old IE, even like IE9, it doesn't support things like const. But also, I just find var so much more flexible and enjoyable. Const, you can't change the value after the first time, I believe. All right, let's try this again. And okay, it worked. So that's pretty much all I need for the matrix multiplication. Just to be able to show what feeds in to what. So For this first one, as you can see here, let's zoom in. What we're doing to get that 58 is 1 times 7 plus 2 times 9 plus 3 times 11 equals 58. For 64, it's 1 times 8, 2 times 10, 3 times 12. And so this gets done very quickly when we're doing these pass-throughs, the neural networks. And so one of my next steps is I want to be able to visualize this myself, and then also to make a video for everyone's benefit, to be able to visualize at each step through this process. The input, which in this case, so again, this is helping us predict the y value for every x value, and then we can plot it and see how well we did. And what's cool about neural networks is you don't have to do one value at a time. A lot of examples will just show you that, oh, look, one value comes in and this is the calculation that happens. But actually, in most cases, you're going to be passing a whole batch of values. So we could be passing the value 1, 2, 3, 4, or the values 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then at each step, we have like a matrix multiplication. And should we maybe do a, trying to see if we should show an example here, at least of like the first step. So let's see if we have, I think I have some of this already. Let's see. Matrix before step 0. It's just an example batch here. And then I wonder if ChatGPT can help me figure out what was multiplied here. Well, let's see. I had something that I can leverage here, and this will be the last thing. Let me do a little plug here. If you're interested in learning more about machine learning and how to use it, I have a ton of resources on GroupDiscover.com, and I invite people to come join, and then you can share your videos that you find as well if you find interesting knowledge out there, documentaries, and people sharing what they find. I have tons of stuff in here about AI, lots of interesting documentaries and news reports as well. It's a great resource. Whenever I find a good video, I share it on here. There's also a bunch of stuff about, let's see, this is a good one. This is somebody called Purs, I think, on YouTube. And he's making stuff like this, like amazing artwork using something called Comfy UI. And it's really amazing how this technology is letting people compose like never before. So the way it works, I don't want to play too much of his video, obviously, is you have these different nodes, and the models just get loaded up in these nodes. Different options and settings and prompts get loaded up in these nodes. For example, this one here is saying don't show anything not safe for work, etc. And you can see he's just making the craziest stuff. Like, look at some of these outputs here. And that's all just from the prompt, a beautiful flower blossoming in a gorgeous, verdant green field. And then it's running through these different options, different settings. And somebody in the chat before she started accusing me of leading people into the New World Order or whatever, was saying that she has a hard time running her Mac. Well, there are options for people who want to play around with these tools without buying like a graphics card or without buying a good computer. For example, RunPod lets you rent GPUs and try just from your browser. So some pretty crazy technologies out there for people who aren't closed-minded and resistant to change and advancement. So I recommend checking out this video from Purs. I've got a ton of videos that I find. We're at 27,000 videos in this repository. It's searchable. You can add more as you find them. And we're running a 50% off sale. Just use the coupon code ANTIPOISON. Which, by the way, that's one of the big reasons why I'm just so sick of the people that call themselves medical freedom. because they're not anti-poison. They just grandstand on popular issues because people don't want to be forced to take poisonous drugs. And so they know that's popular, or they'll find other things that people are afraid of that are popular, or just instill more fear. Fear of cancer, fear of parasites, fear of chemtrails, fear of fluoride in the water. And then once they have everybody afraid, they tell people you have to take poison. You have to take all this poison. You got to treat it early. You got to treat it fast. And it really pisses me off. And so I've done a lot of work to try to get people off the hook for not being forced to take poison, or at least to have informed consent. And then I see people just come up, mopping the floor, or rather piggybacking off my work to get people to take poison because they have the crowd favorites. And, oh my gosh, Fauci, Fauci, take this poison. It's like, what are you guys talking about? So it really makes me mad. So that's one reason why I'm liking AI these days, is it's like, oh, good. Logical, rational being, a computer. What a great change of pace. It's like a glass of water in hell. But I will continue to point out and expose these bastards pushing poison, claiming it's medical freedom. They just want to have the freedom to poison you and to trick you into taking poison and to have no repercussions. And I don't want them to have that freedom. That's not what medical freedom means to me. And it's pretty crazy that people gain people's trust by calling out certain products that everybody doesn't like, and then pushing other products that people are just not, unsuspecting to. So I'm not going to apologize for my body of work. I think it stands for itself. And I think I'm expanding into new territories that most people don't even want to comprehend. And that's not my fault. And it's funny, all the backward thinking of people that think they're so smart. Like, oh, AI is so bad. We need to ban numbers. Time Magazine is right. It's an existential threat, and we should throw anybody who publishes numbers in jail. And no, I'm over here with Winston Smith and the other rational people. All right, so let's continue. I think I showed a number of examples today about how we can generate code super easily. There's some other languages I just want to make sure people are aware of. Python's good. I started this list earlier, but I didn't finish. Python's really solid. You can also write servers in Python, which is cool. So, for example, write me a Python server using Flask. So that's just like a key tool to use that will respond to HTTP requests. So that's stuff that we can send from JavaScript. So if we have an HTML page with JavaScript, we can ask the Python server, which we can just real quick launch on our computer, localhost, or on a server somewhere, to let's see, what do we want to do? Maybe something with neural networks, to start training a neural network from a CSV file. So obviously you want to give it all the details. Or you could, I'm trying to think what a good example is with server. Whenever I think server, I always just use PHP. And one of the best things to do with PHP is accessing a database. And databases are a really solid technology that people should be leveraging if you care about research and knowledge and data. And the best free database that I found is called PostgreSQL, which is kind of a weird, intimidating name, but it's one of the best, and it's open source. I think it's the best. And so you could just ask, like, write me a PHP script that has a number of helper functions for saving and accessing data from a PostgreSQL database for storing the text of book chapters. Let's just pick an example here. I also need the create table command for PostgreSQL. So the first step is, well, when you start a PostgreSQL instance, if you basically install it on your computer, you need to make a new database and a user that can access that database. Make sure you save the password to the user. Then inside that database, once you connect, you make a table. So the database contains tables, and this is a create table query here that makes it book chapters. This is just an example. So it has an ID. Usually I wouldn't use varchar at all. I'd just change this to text for all the varchars. But I do like serial here. ID is type serial, and it's the primary key. So basically serial is int, which is like a whole number, 1, 2, 3, and it creates a new one automatically whenever you create a new item. So it's going to show us here probably an insert example. So this is it wrapping it into a public function. And I probably wouldn't use PDO myself. PDO is good because it'll allow you to switch between database providers. Like this would allow you to easily switch to, say, MySQL, another popular one. But I don't ever want to switch to MySQL. So I would say rewrite this using the PG underscore PostgreSQL client PHP. I forgot what it's called. And I could have also taken that chance to say, don't use varchar, use text. The problem with varchar is it's going to cap you at this number here. 255 is the maximum. So here it's doing PG query. I like PG query a lot better. So it's more, it's closer to the middle. So save chapter. See, here we're doing an insert. And what's cool is we don't have to say the ID that we're inserting in. It's going to automatically give us the next ID in the list. And then later, once we have the ID, we can just, so for example, this is getting the chapter from the book title and the chapter number, but I could say, write me a get chapter by ID function. So if I have an ID, give me the chapter. Certainly, here it is. And again, it's writing me the whole code here, which is sometimes a little annoying if I just want a function. Here it is, get chapter by ID, select from book chapters where the ID is equal to 1. This is just how placeholders work, which helps against what's called SQL injection, which is great. You don't want SQL injection. So it's just amazing how easy it is to write, and you can just converse with it and be like, oh, I tried it, but it doesn't work. Or I need this function, that function, that. So PostgreSQL is great. PHP is awesome. A lot of times when we're saving data, we don't actually need to use a database. We can just save it to a file, in which case JSON is a great way to store data in a file. It's JavaScript object notation is what it stands for, and it just plugs and plays right into JavaScript, which is where it came from. What else? So we covered Python for like standalone apps or standalone scripts that you can just run for utility stuff. HTML, JavaScript, CSS for front-end web development. For back-end web development, PHP, or you can use something like Python Flask, or you can use Node.js as other alternatives to PHP. Then there is, I would also recommend looking at jQuery and all the plugins that come along with it for web stuff. A lot of the web stuff you can just prompt ChatGPT and it'll help you find the best libraries, etc. What else? Covered PostgreSQL. Those are my go-tos. Also, there's just command line stuff that you can find. Let me see. I had some notes here. Not the best list of languages. Those are just the ones that I think are the most useful for us. There's got to be more. What am I forgetting? I'm trying to like, I know I could list programming languages till the cows come home, but I'm just trying to think of what is actually useful to people. I think IIS, which we talked about earlier, if you're on Windows, or Node.js, or excuse me, not Node.js, Nginx, as a server for Mac users or Linux users. It's great to have a server on your computer, and then you can just put in files and folders, and then it just works. You just go to localhost. So that's something I really recommend just getting set up and utilizing, since you have ChatGPT, which will just generate and write code for you. What else? I think it's important to write reusable code. So for example, this page right here is mostly just a simple call to a, let me click right down here. All right, I'll just do view source up here. So this is just a really simple call to a jQuery plugin that I wrote. So first it loads the data with an AJAX call. That's a jQuery thing. And then it calls this custom jQuery plugin that I made called Neural Network Viz. And the reason I did this is because once I write this code, it's reusable. So it's not just a page I made here. It's a functionality that I can take anywhere. Like one of my first jobs, unfortunately, it was just like a summer internship, was for a military contractor company. And I actually learned a ton. I got way more out of it than I gave to the military. It was like my first summer in college, and I was like, well, I got to get a job, and this is the one that I could get. I still somewhat regret being anywhere involved with the military, but that aside, I remember getting the rundown. Like the first thing I learned was like jQuery, and they were writing in Java, which was something that I wrote myself. That was the language that I knew, but I didn't really do Java in that role. I was doing all like front end jQuery work. And I remember they were just getting these huge contracts from the military. I didn't work on any of them, but they were just building custom jQuery plugins, is my long story short. And they were basically just taking like sensor data and rendering it very like precisely with columns and columns of pixels going left to right, and just it would fill in like a printer printing something out, but it was all colored, rainbow color scheme, like kind of like a heat map color scheme thing. With you could visualize the data really well, and I was just blown away. I'm like, wow, this is awesome, jQuery. And but that's where I learned like the importance of making plugins, because then once you have that plugin and you just sit down and you think about what you want it to show, what the inputs and the outputs are, then you can reuse that anywhere. So they could just get a new contract. This contractor company I was working at could just get a new contract with a different agency or a different, whatever it's called, wing of the army, military. And whenever they're dealing with a certain sensor, they're like, okay, we have this jQuery plugin, we just plop it right into the dashboard. And they just have a whole suite of these plugins, and then they, sustain their whole business just by like combining the plugins, making more plugins, etc. So I think, I don't even know why I brought that up, other than that was kind of where I got hip to it. I got hip to how to do this. But it's really helpful to have jQuery plugins. So what I do, and if anybody needs this code, just send me an email, but I have, let's see if I can find it. Yeah, my code gen templates. So for example, I have this jQuery plugin template, and this is my favorite way to structure the plugins. So basically what you do is you have a plugin object, which equals a function. It's actually just the name that equals the function. It's a function variable that's named somewhat akin to your plugin name object, or whatever you want to call it. So I could call this neural network viz object. And I can just show actually my other script in a second here to show you how I actually implemented this in that case. But basically what you do is you take some options in. This is important. Options versus like listing them all out. So sometimes you'll see functions where you list out all the parameters that you want. So you might have, for this case, like data, architecture, etc. But the problem with that is you want it to be more flexible. And the most flexible way to do it is just taking one array, one object, key value paired object array. And this allows you to extend it in the future, add 10 more options or change option names or whatever. And you're much more in a bind if you try to do it listing out all of the options by name, right? So just pile them into an options object. And then it's oftentimes helpful to have defaults. And then you just extend the defaults, for example. There's a whole bunch of ways to do this, but you'll take the options if they're hard-coded, if they're passed in, but then otherwise use the defaults. And then after you set up this overarching function, you can set up functionality in terms of prototype functions. So the plugin name here .prototype plugin function, whatever the function name is, equals, and then you can set up the function however you want. You can take, sometimes it does make sense to take like common parameter names. Other times you might just want to do the same trick that we did before, just take an options object. There's so much flexibility. And again, we're not even active. These days you don't have to write this code. You can just, what I like, the reason I have this file is I can copy this. And it gets a little confused with this stuff, like plugin name here. So these days I try to like rename some of this to make it more obvious. And then I'd put like to do, implement, whatever, right? And give it a name that kind of gives it a sense of what you want. But I like to give it a format here because a lot of times if you just tell it to make you a plugin, like say, make me a jQuery plugin, it'll just, it's such a vague request. It can just give you all sorts of responses. But if you give it an example, then you're much more likely to get what you want. But this is the key thing right here. This is basically installs onto your jQuery $ object your custom plugin. So this allows you on your selected objects or your selected elements to run this plugin. So for example, I select basically my one element on this page, network visualizer, and I do neural network viz, and then I pass it my options. So it's super easy to use. And then in the future, say in 10 years, if I need to use this again, I can just easily all I have to do is import the JS, maybe the CSS if there's styles with it, and then boom, I can just plug and play. And let me show you some more tricks of the trade as far as developing websites goes. So if we go here to see if it's installed correctly, I can do like an empty selector, just pass an empty array. Zoom in for everyone. Empty array into the jQuery selector, which is the $ in the parentheses. And then I can do dot. It's not finding it. Should be this, neural network viz. Okay, well it found it, but it didn't do the autocomplete for me. Sometimes if you're trying to get the autocomplete, it helps to save it to a variable first. So you can do like var L equals that, then do L dot neural network viz. So that gives you the autocomplete. Or you can use a decent browser. I don't know. The Firefox gives me a lot of trouble sometimes. Chrome is probably better. But what I like is if you type this out, like I did up here, it'll show you that the function exists, and you can just click this little arrow button, jump to definition. This will open up in the debugger the code. And I can see, so similar to my template that I just showed you, we have our function, which defines this overarching object that we can extend. It's kind of like classes. If you've ever programmed in Java or other object-oriented languages. And JavaScript does support classes in later versions, but just for historical reasons and to support old browsers, I do this approach, which is, I think, called the constructor function approach. This is our constructor function, and then we extend this variable, which we set equal to that function, with additional functions by using the object name .prototype .function name. And what's cool is, let's go back over here. I want to open up the called neural network visualizer.html. So what's oftentimes helpful, and I didn't do it here, but I can, is we can either have a global variable, which is just defined at the very top of the script, var, we'll call it nnet, and then down here we can just set it equal to that. Or we could do what I did in this line above, which is just do window dot, and then you don't even have to do this. That's kind of equivalent, but we'll just do it this way. And so what this allows me to do is actually access it after the fact without having to put a breakpoint in the debugger. Ah, shoot, I was too zoomed in. I didn't even show my screen, sorry. I'll just undo and redo to show. So all I said is you can put a global variable up top and then set it equal to the response from your jQuery plugin call. You have to configure it correctly. That's why I think it's good to have a template that you go off of. For example, what's doing that down here is this where I install it onto the jQuery selector, a return of an instance down here. Return instance. So that's what allows me here to know that I get a response from calling it and that I can save it off. Another a typical behavior, if you just ask ChatGPT to give you a jQuery plugin, a lot of times it's going to do it's going to set it up for what's called chaining in jQuery. And chaining in jQuery is oftentimes helpful, but I don't like it for this. Chaining in jQuery would be if I have my my network visualizer element, which is an ID that I'm using to select with the hash sign. I could do, for example, .html, my HTML here, and then I could do .hide. So I'm doing a number of different functions here in a row, and the way that it's possible is because each one of these types of functions in jQuery, when it's done, it returns the element or the elements that you operated on, the selector, which makes it really convenient. You can chain stuff together. The problem, though, is, well, it's not really a problem. It's just we don't need that for here. And what we do need is the actual object. And there's a lot of ways to do this. Like there's something called data in jQuery. So even before I refresh this page, let me show you a different way to access the object here. If you, like you can see in my main function here, it is doing a $.data on this element. And there's other ways to invoke data. Usually what I do is this .data. And let me zoom in for you here. And so we can see all the data that's been stored in that element by jQuery code. And currently it's just neural network viz. So I can also pass this key into data. And that's basically the same thing that I'm doing here as returning this object. So there's a number of ways to skin the cat. So now I can just, since I refreshed the page, I can just access it as nnet. And I can show you the functions here. Draw connection, draw neuron, draw network. Most of these I won't ever have to call separately. They all get called internally by the plugin. And when you're writing plugins, and you see this with classes and other object-oriented language, or you see the word this a lot, which is a really cool thing because we might have 100 different neural networks visualizers on the page. But with this simple word, this, we're always talking about the one that we're talking about. So it's just a shorthand, and it's all just self-encapsulated. So they can all have different settings. They can all have, they can all call their functions without having to worry about which one they're talking about. They're talking about this one. So you see the word this a lot. So jQuery plugins are some of my favorite things, and and I think it's a great idea to organize our code in such fashion, because you'll just be developing at such a faster pace. So we have the ability now to do this stuff so quickly with ChatGPT. That's what I find exciting. I know the power of code, and I know the power of intelligence. And we can now tap into things that we've never been able to tap into. These opportunities have never been available to any of our ancestors ever, in terms of just requesting code in, I mean, maybe if you had like a super rich ancestor who had programmers on payroll or something, then they might have had something somewhat akin to this. But even still, it's going to be faster, maybe not better quality, but it's way more accessible to the average person for way lower cost. And I think in the coming years, it's going to get better and better and better. And there's a lot of ways that this could turn out. I'm not sure exactly what they're going to do in terms of stifling the ability to generate code. I could see them saying, oh, that's not safe. We can't let people have code that's not safe. Or a lot of the type of code that we might want to generate, them saying, oh, no, you can't have that. We can't trust you with that, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know how long this window is going to be open. I'm not saying that AI is always going to be a beautiful thing. I mean, I think AI is a beautiful thing, personally. The problem is how it is applied. And I don't subscribe to the school of thought that we hear so oftentimes from our controllers, that, oh, you shouldn't learn anything. God doesn't want you to learn anything. Look what happened with the Tower of Babel. Look what happened when they ate from the tree of knowledge. I don't subscribe to that stuff. Now those stories might have some truth to it. I think there's definitely other ways to interpret those stories, like the Tower of Babel, where they were physically trying to reach the heavens and become gods. Obviously, I'm against thinking like that. That's blasphemous to me. But my point is, I think we were given faculties to learn and to think and to reason and to prevent people from tricking us into doing something evil or harming ourselves, et cetera, et cetera. And that's a great thing, Also, and this is getting a little bit philosophical, but I don't even know if I want to go down this road, but it's something that really keeps me up at night, is the amount that our species has been engineered by people who are not God, right? God created, in my opinion, God created this system of life. I think it's pretty obvious, by which genetics get, for lack of a better word, let's just say offspring inherit traits from their parents. Then you have these evil bastard humans coming along and saying, well, we can create a species of humans that serves us better. We can make humans smarter, more attractive, have fewer so-called deformities, be more submissive and servile, and less rebellious, et cetera, all these traits. And they have. They've done things like selective breeding and so-called, I don't even like the term education in this case, but propaganda campaigns to weed out certain groups from society. They've done things a lot worse than education campaigns. Again, not the right term, propaganda campaigns. They've done forced sterilization of homeless people, of blind people, of certain demographic groups. They've tricked other groups with ivermectin to sterilize themselves, with other poisons. So when I look at humanity, it's hard for me to, sometimes it's kind of a blurred line between God's creation and this perversion of God's creation, this crazy genetic experiment that's happened through selective breeding and, forced and tricked, coerced sterilization campaigns. I mean, look, this has been going on for thousands of years. Look at like ancient Greece. They would have babies and be like, oh, we don't really like how you look, so we're going to just do what they called exposure and just let the baby off into the wilderness where it would die or be taken as a slave. So I see tons of issues just looking at our own species, and I don't really attribute all those things to God. I think, and that's kind of just a side point. I don't even know why I brought that up. It's just something that weighs on my conscience a lot. That we are creatures that have been, who we are to some extent has been dictated by evil people. And that, one thing a lot of our ancestors have in common is they were bootlicking fascists a lot of times, right? In different empires. So what am I trying to say? I don't even know. But like, people ask me, like, what's the meaning of life? And then I'm like, well, are you talking about human life? Because humanity is kind of at this point, it's a very strange thing. It's a very strange thing. All right. I don't even know why I brought that up. It's just been on my mind. Let me see if there's any comments in the chat, and then we'll start wrapping up. Leth Bridge, shout out to Leth. Good to see you as well. Leth says infanticide was practiced for many reasons by many cultures. Right. So shout out to everybody on Rumble. We've got a good crowd on Rumble. Check out the beginning of the stream. I just wanted to run through some examples of how to code with ChatGPT to help us fight these evil forces. I think it's amazing that we have these opportunities to manifest our ideas and to dream bigger than we've ever dreamt before and actually implement the stages that are needed to get there. And then if everybody out there is doing that, especially people that I consider good, that's what I want. So I'm just trying to make sure that people are aware of this. I remember the person who told me that they were using ChatGPT to do their programming, and I was taken aback because I didn't even think it was possible. I'm like, no, they can't do code. What? That's crazy. A chatbot? And so I think that, certain people, certain groups of people are being tricked into not using this technology that's like right at their fingertips. And I think it just ties into like the same groups of people that are being tricked into taking poisons to sterilize themselves and remove themselves from the gene pool. So while I do see a lot of problems with where this is going, and I'm going to be throwing myself on the gears along the way, if it gives you code that you can just save onto your computer and use for your own benefit and the benefit of good people around the world, I know the value of code, and if it's disjoint, once you get it, they can't claw it back. So part of me is just like, let's play chicken here and get as much research. And it's not just code. I've always had put value into code, and maybe that's just me. But it's also just research and information and knowledge. We need to be seeking it wherever it's found, because we're at this point in time. I see that the internet is changing. The search engines are becoming less and less usable. Windows are closing. And we run the risk of losing this knowledge forever if people don't archive it. So that's what I'm calling for. Coding can help us do that. Databases can help us do that. All right, so I'll stop ranting there. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Shout out to Leth. Good to see you again. Shout out to Winston Smith in the chat. Good to see you, Winston. Good luck to everybody out there. Thank you for stopping by. Check out GroupDiscover.com if you want to join my search for truth. Got a huge archive of over 27,000 videos. More get added there whenever I find them. Whenever our researchers find them, they can share them on there as well. It's a searchable archive, and it has an unintrusive ratings system to give you recommendations based on the ratings that everybody's given videos for the videos you haven't seen yet. And much more to come on all fronts. I'm going to keep calling out these poison pushers. They piss me off to no end. And I hate it when my when my work that I do just for less than minimum wage gets piggybacked to push poison on the people that I'm trying to help. And that's what happens with these crowd favorites. So yeah, I could get a lot of views, but I'd be playing into the stupid hands, or I'd be playing into the hands of this evil, sinister, insidious agenda to sterilize all you good people and to kill you and get you to they're trying to trick you into committing suicide, self-lobotomies. And I'm the opposite. I'm like, okay, they want you to not use AI and lobotomize yourself and sterilize yourself. What's the opposite of that? That's what I want for you all, and I wish you all a great night. Good luck.